Welcome to the Tomorrow Zone Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Rubin. Transformation is becoming one of the most common words in business today, and every technology investment, AI initiative, every process improvement seems to be labeled as transformation. But at the same time, leaders are being pulled in every direction. We've got to move faster. We got to slow down. We got to automate more. We need to be more human. We need to focus on efficiency. We need to reinvent our business. And I think the question isn't whether organizations need to change. They do. The question is whether we're actually transforming or are we just simply accelerating what we've always been doing. So today we want to explore a metaphor that has fundamentally changed how I think about transformation. It's the difference between simply making a caterpillar faster or allowing it to become a butterfly. So joining me in today's conversation is Jenica Berg, Tomorrow Zone's Director of Operations. Jenica and I have been exploring what transformation really means for organizations that are building their next stage of growth. And rather than just talking about technology, we're going to talk about capability, evolution, and what it really takes to become something fundamentally different. Jenica, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this conversation. And Deb, you've been using this caterpillar to butterfly analogy in several conversations lately because it changes how people think about transformation. So before we, jump in, I'd love to really set the stage and give our audience context. Can you walk us through what this metaphor means, why it resonates for you? And I'm going to share this great image that you put together here while you're doing that. So here we go.
Sure. So this is my my cartoon version of transformation using the caterpillar to butterfly metaphor. And the reason that I talk about this, I first heard this from John Hagel. And John Hagel is a respected thought leader and a legend in the innovation and transformation space. And so he's been talking about this metaphor in relation to organizational transformation for years. But I first heard it when he spoke at Monitor's Converge event a few summers ago, and it just stuck with me ever since. So John Hagel frames it like this: most digital transformation is really just companies doing the same thing, but faster or cheaper. And, if we're honest about it, that's really what's happening a lot of the time. But true transformation is when you come out the other side unrecognizable. The caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. I mean, even in my rudimentary drawing here, you can see the difference between the caterpillar and the butterfly. It's a different entity. It has different capabilities, different everything. And so you'd never know that they were the same organism. And then he takes it even further and pushes us to think about not just transforming in terms of becoming a butterfly, but becoming something that keeps transforming. And that is tied directly to what I talk about in my book, Enter the Tomorrow Zone, the evolve shift, building a capability to continually take on transformation. And so I was thinking about this, and I remember when John Hagel was talking about this at that innovation event, in my imagination, I saw a caterpillar on roller skates, just a faster caterpillar. And that's when, like in our companies, we're just applying automation or adding AI or new applications bolted onto broken or unchanged processes. It's just a faster caterpillar. And it's a little more complex. It might be faster, but it's still a caterpillar. And, and also I got to thinking about this and you're also adding some serious complexity and maintenance issues because caterpillars, I looked this up this morning, they have 16 legs. A monarch caterpillar has 16 legs.
Crazy.
Now imagine with roller skates, now you have 64 wheels. That's a lot that could go wrong. So, it's faster, but it's more complex and it's not ideal. Rocket boots. So that's another capability. So, this needs to fly. Well, we could add rocket boots to each of those 16 legs, and that's what it's like when we're adding AI, intelligent automation. We're just attaching it externally. It's powerful augmentation. We have liftoff. We're flying. It looks like flight, gets announced. It's all exciting, but it's not actually embedded as an organizational capability. It's not grown from within. Also not sustainable as if you actually had an embedded new capability. And it can introduce some risk. I mean, think about that organism there with the fire on its feet. It's going to be a lot more complex for maintenance. It's a lot of heat for a tiny little caterpillar flying through the air. So anyway, I just kind of was extending the metaphor in my in my cartoony imagination. And I think that the point that John Hagel was making as he was talking about this metaphor for transformation is that it's not just about the transformation itself, but really think about building a capability to be able to continually transform. And that's so aligned with what I write about in my book. I actually just came from a conversation with a leader. We were talking about exactly this. In the world that we're living in today, where things are changing so fast and so rapidly from all different directions, we need to develop the muscle and the ability to continually take on transformational change. So that's what it was all about.
That's awesome. And you know what makes this metaphor so powerful is that the caterpillar can become faster, right? Like it could. So, why do so many organizations mistake optimization for transformation?
I think a lot of this comes back to the temptation to just get caught up in short term thinking because there's so much pressure to perform. There's so much pressure to do it now, to execute. And, that leads us to getting into technology first, short sighted thinking. And if you're only doing execution versus strategy and big picture thinking, you're missing out because we need to be zooming out and zooming in as we're thinking about what we're doing to shape our future. Zooming out says, who do we want to become as an organization and why? And zooming in says, what do we need to do now that is in service of not only solving our current need, but enabling that big picture future that we want to create. And so I think it's the difference between, if we think about it in terms of the technology initiatives that we've witnessed, where it's a difference between just slamming in the software, it's an installation, versus thinking through truly architecting the foundation that's going to enable the future that you want to build as a company and as a team. And, missing that distinction can be quite costly. And it can be the difference between your 1 year project that finishes in 1 year versus your 1 year project that takes 3 years because you weren't thinking through these things.
And it's like I'm thinking about a caterpillar versus a butterfly. In that transformation, there actually are pieces of the caterpillar that aren't necessary anymore, right? Like a flight caterpillar doesn't need 16 legs. And so that transformation, it's about actually really looking at, are there pieces we don't need anymore? And that takes time and thought, but that's what brings transformation, not just slamming on rock boots.
Well, and also I was super nerding out on the actual biological nightmare that happens in the chrysalis.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it this morning because I was like, what really is happening inside there? Because it just seems really gross. And I'm not a biology scientist or anything like that. So clearly I don't have all the right lingo for this, but there are these special cells inside that chrysalis and inside the caterpillar itself that are like the future capabilities. And we don't see them. They're under the surface. But it's as it's going through that process inside the chrysalis, those things that were always there are then starting to become what that future organism is, the wings and the antennas and all the other. So and I didn't even know, and they're called imaginal cells. Okay. They're dormant clusters of cells inside a caterpillar that contain the genetic blueprint for a butterfly.
That's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Wow. That metaphor just got a lot stronger.
Yeah. This metaphor is just firing up my own imagination.
Yeah.
I actually want to dive deeper into this and do some writing about it because there are so many parallels to what we see happening inside of organizations and teams when they're taking on a big transformation. The challenge is we're not fully preparing people to go through what it takes to actually transform that chrysalis experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, I completely forgot your question because I got all
No,
excited about the
no.
nerdy stuff.
No, that actually is that's a good transition into our next one. So we spend a lot of time working with executive teams that are preparing for that next stage of growth. That's a lot of our work here. So what shifts do leaders need to make when they realize that their current operating model simply will not support where they're trying to go?
hmm I was thinking about this and just kind of thinking back to what we do with leaders that are trying to make this leap into the next new thing. And so often it comes down to step back, let's get really, really clear and honest about the big picture. And we look at it from many different lenses, but where do you want to go? Who do you want to become? And why as a company? And then getting, you know, totally honest about the current state of things from multiple lenses. And so every different perspective represented in creating that big picture, because when you're honest about it, even if you have a standard shared vision statement, maybe it's even on your wall or it's on your mugs or whatever, everybody has it, everybody knows what it is. Every single person coming from their different perspective, their different expertise and background, and the responsibilities that they carry, interprets that in a different way. And so when you don't have the conversations that are necessary to ensure and validate that you all have a clear and shared understanding of what it is you're trying to do together and why, then you're starting on a foundation that's really shaky because it's based on assumptions. So anyway, I think that's the biggest thing, is like leveraging the power of the pause. This doesn't mean you're stopping forever, and it doesn't mean you're slowing down, but stepping back long enough to get really, really, really clear
Yeah.
together on what does that next stage of growth mean before we start making decisions about what we want to do and how.
I'm thinking about the imaginals and just how there are imaginals in every organization, right? And when you take that time, it actually allows the people that have that potential to come to the surface and show you what's possible with who you have, because there are latent gifts and skills and expertise that if you're just zooming forward without taking that time, you're not going to give them the opportunity to surface.
Yeah. And this is the Empower Shift that I write about in my
Yeah,
book. And I've
absolutely.
shared this with leaders that I've advised in the past that, given the right conditions, your leaders are going to reveal themselves.
Absolutely.
And so, I remember working on a project with a leader. It was a big origination platform implementation, and we were like totally changing how they operated. And this was it was in lending.
Okay.
And they were trying to make decisions on things that they just couldn't know at the start. And my advice at that time was, we need to get really clear and share the vision of what we're doing together, and then we need to watch, because the people, they're going to surprise you, and the ones that are going to be really passionate about this, to like wrap their head around it and really get into it, those are the ones that become the champions that we're going to want to really develop. And so it's like those imaginals that we talked about, like the cells that are in the caterpillar that contribute to becoming the butterfly. We can't see them, but as we start to go through that process, they're going to start to pop up. And one of the things that I've talked about a lot is we can't know everything at the start, but there are things that we can discover along the way. And I think that this is something that I see a lot, where we start to see some really amazing people standing up, but then also developing new capabilities, new skills. We see the mindsets shifting and changing as people start taking on the process of shaping the future that we want to see together. And so there's so much to be said about a leader that's willing to intentionally create the conditions for the team to succeed through the transformation, because there's such a multiplying power there if you've got all of the people coming out on the other side
Yeah,
better than when we started. And it's not
absolutely.
just, oh, and we're better because we have software. No, so we're better because we went through this tough process together as a team, and we're stronger and we're making better decisions and we're clear about where we're going next. Now we can take
Absolutely.
on the next transformation and the next transformation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the chrysalis stage because the butterfly does not emerge without going through the chrysalis, right? And
Yeah.
you've called that stage the goose stage, using it as a
I actually got that
metaphor.
from you.
I think you did. Yeah. That was from an ELFA Innovation Roundtable years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. I
Yeah.
challenged you
Yeah.
to speak at that one.
Yeah.
You talked about
But
goo.
but we use it as a metaphor for the messy middle. So let's talk about this and why that stage is so important and why so many organizations struggle with it. And I'm going to share another image here while you're doing that.
All right. Well, I think that this also relates to some of the things that I wrote about in my book. We
Hmm.
talk a lot about the messy middle of innovation. And there is this point that you go through where all of the friction shows up. And it's that point where you're too far from the starting line to turn back. And you're not yet to the finish line. You probably can't even see the finish line yet. And it's that space in the middle that feels like nothing good is happening. You can't see the progress. It's hard to see. It's where you'll have confusion, disagreements, misalignment can start to pop up if you're not prepared to go through that tough part together. And so I think that a lot of the reason why organizations struggle with it is because, first of all, they don't realize that it's a natural part of that transformation process.
Hmm.
Now, like, the caterpillar knows it needs to go through this, and then it climbs up onto the branch of the plant, and then it does its magical stuff. Go look it up on Wikipedia or whatever for the true biological lingo, but it just knows it needs to go through this. But as humans, we don't always know that what that's a normal part of a transformation process unless you've been through many of these innovation experiences. Like I'm old enough to have been through this many, many, many times. And so it can help lead the way and help teams get through it and get ready to go through it. But, I think a lot of times leaders may think that this is failure. It's not. This is actually the part where the transformation is happening.
Absolutely.
It's a necessary part of the process because we have this expectation that we should know everything from the start. And we can't know everything from the
Yeah.
start of this initiative because there are things that you can only learn when you get to a point where you can learn them. The discovery driven approach to innovation, I think, catches a lot of teams off guard because many people in their day job are in a world where it's about black and white. It's about, if you're asked a question, you give an answer. When it comes to innovation, it's discovery driven, and often it's about the questions that you ask and the answers that you challenge.
Yeah.
And it's a very different world from your day job. And so I think that the challenge is that it's a struggle because people don't gear up for it. It's not part of their nature. They haven't built the muscle for it. And so, you know, I used to be a gymnast, and I remember, man, so we worked out 5 days a week in the summer,
Hmm.
4 hours every morning. And I hated taking vacation because whenever we would take 2 weeks off, to go to grandma's house or whatever, I would be so sore after my first day back in the gym. My muscles were sore, and I knew that that was going to happen. But like when you're exercising muscles that you haven't been using for a while, or in many cases you haven't used ever,
Ever. Yeah.
there's going to be a little bit of friction. And that happens as we're going through a transformational initiative as well. We're doing things that we haven't done before, often with people that we only just met, and it is uncomfortable. And so
Hmm.
I think that throwing a bunch of people into something with the best intentions, that's a completely foreign environment to them without preparing, is one of the biggest reasons why people struggle through this,
Yeah.
especially when we know this is a normal part of the process. And when you get through that middle part, the messy middle, where it looks like nothing is happening, you're going through the disillusion So like the caterpillar is actually it's gross in there. Like the caterpillar is
Yeah.
dissolving inside of that chrysalis. But the blueprint for the butterfly on the other side is still there. And it, and it will come out of that process on the other side altogether with flight capabilities. But, it's a really interesting parallel to what's happening within a team as we're trying to transform an organization, even in small ways, like a new software implementation or a process change. There's always that icky part in the middle that's uncomfortable until it's not.
I think that's so important because that piece, it is messy, it is uncomfortable, but the reality is it has to happen and it can't be hurried. Like if you were to open that chrysalis and try and rush that process, the butterfly dies. And the butterfly has to break its way itself out of that chrysalis. If you try and help it, it dies. And I think that's a part of this metaphor that you can't, as uncomfortable as it is, as messy it is the vital part because it's how you're figuring it out together. It's how you're moving forward together. And when you do that as a team successfully and you do come out that other side with a transformation, you've built capabilities. You can't buy that. I mean, that is so powerful. And that is also what will take you forward to the next one. My husband and I just did a home project that ended up being way bigger than we thought it was going to be. And I
You
just
didn't know what you didn't know, right?
we totally didn't know we didn't know. And I mean, there was a point where we were both like, oh, dear God, what did we do? And I just kept saying, the only way to it is through it because that's it. Like, you can't, the only way to finish is to just do it and move through it and figure it out. And yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you probably also have a backlog list in your head of projects that you're going to take on
Yeah, we went a
when you
little bit of a
recover from
break,
the
though.
soreness of this one.
Yeah, because there was also some muscles we didn't know we had.
Yep.
So it seems like transformation is a lot about evolution, which is something else that you talk about in your book. How does a leadership team know their organization is actually evolving instead of simply getting better at what it's always done?
This is fun, actually. Um, and I've been blessed to be working with a client right now where we've been practicing the shifts of the Tomorrow Zone system over and over and over again. And so several initiatives that we've done now practicing this, and it's really fun because you actually see it. You see it and you hear it in their language
Hmm.
instead of us versus them. We're actually operating not only with the client team but with their partners, their software companies, their implementation partners, their advisors, and it becomes we. It's a true collaboration. um, we hear it in the questions, instead of can we do this, shifting to how might we do this. And that it sounds like a subtle thing, but it's actually a radical shift from permission to
Hmm.
possibility. And now we're asking, what if? Well, what if we did this? What if we did this different? And so we start to see not only the curiosity, but the possibility thinking and the confidence to challenge status quo and create something totally different. And we also see it in their willingness to take action and to explore, to discover, to test and challenge assumptions and to boldly ask those what if
Hmm.
questions that, might not be traditional, but could lead to something totally new, like the butterfly experience. And then you also see it in the results. A team that's not only succeeding win after win, but they're getting stuff done, and it's fueling taking on even bigger challenges and shaping the future, not being a victim of circumstances. And it's
Hmm.
it's really exciting to see that becoming embedded as a capability. I can see this team is going to be able to take on many transformative initiatives because as humans, as leaders, they're transforming
Yeah.
themselves. And it's starting to spread
Hmm.
beyond just the executive team into the rest of the organization. And I'm actually hearing them use my phrases and language as if it's their own. So it's
Fabulous.
it's it's really fun to watch,
Yeah.
and it's exciting to see projects happening on time, on or under budget with zero drama.
Yeah.
That should be the capability of 2026 and beyond.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll see it
Absolutely.
if you practice it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about AI because it is accelerating just about everything we do today,
Goodness
sort of.
gracious.
But where do we see organizations confusing AI adoption with transformation? Because I think that's a big confusion right now.
I think that this is again getting back to the trap of the tools first mentality. AI is becoming almost a utility in what we can do on the level of electricity
Hmm.
in the transformative potential. This fire, electricity, AI, very transformative technologies, but they all take different shapes, and the results that you get depends on what you do with it. you know every one of those can be used for good or not. and and so a lot of this comes back to a new way of thinking, and really thinking about, when it comes to AI, the nature of work and how the nature of work changes. It's not just about what can I get done with AI or what can this AI do for me, but like, who could we become because this technology exists?
Hmm.
It's a whole different level of question. And, you know, there's, I think it's possible to completely transform organizations and leverage AI. But also, I think that there's still a need to really, really commit and be grounded in fundamental values and culture, and really understanding why are we doing what we're doing, so that even as we're adopting and bringing AI into the mix, that it always has purpose. Otherwise, we're just throwing tools
Yeah.
at it, and we might get faster at doing what we've always done, or we might completely break the purpose of what we've always done.
Yeah.
And here I get a little bit ranty, and I'll just use Zoom as an example.
Hmm.
They've been sprinkling AI and new capabilities and new functionality and features constantly, to the point where the capabilities that you used to be able to rely on, like the fundamental purpose of why you even subscribe to this tool, is broken,
Hmm.
or it's overcomplicated. And I'm seeing that happen in so many different areas with different platforms and different software companies, where, in their race to innovate, I think that a lot of times in our race to innovate and adopt these tools, we forget that innovation is all about changing the human experience and solving problems that are worth solving to create a better experience for
Yeah.
humans. And that, we see it all over. Once you see it, you can't unsee that
It's true.
pattern. We could do a whole episode on just that. And so I think, as AI is accelerating almost everything we do today, don't confuse AI adoption with transformation that has meaning and purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Deb. One of my biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that transformation isn't defined by speed, it's defined by what your organization actually becomes capable of. And as leaders, it's easy to celebrate activity, productivity, and momentum, and those things matter, but they're not the same as transformation. So as you think about your own organization, ask yourself one simple question. Are we building just a faster caterpillar, or are we really building the capabilities of a butterfly? The answer may change how you think about growth, leadership, and the investments that make moving forward. If this conversation resonates with you, check out Deb's book, Enter the Tomorrow Zone. It's now available on Amazon and an audiobook on audible.com. And if you see yourself in it, book a call with us. We would love to explore shaping the future with you. As always, we love it when you like and subscribe and share the episodes with a friend. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.